Hello, crafting friends. I'm Doreen DeCivas from It Begins with Ink and Paper, and welcome to Simply Stamping Sunday. I'm so happy to have you joining me tonight with my live, where we're going to be using the Ornamental Christmas Set for our second week of Simply Stamping Sunday. Just to make sure that everything is showing up okay, and there we go, it looks good. So for this month, for the month of November, I'm using the Ornamental Christmas Stamp Set, and we're going to be making some Christmas cards this month so that you can start getting ready for Christmas. And we're doing it the Simply Stamping way with just using stamps, ink, and paper. So that's what we're doing right now. And tonight we're using just 4 of the stamps from this set. We're using 2 of the greetings, the star, and this tree. And we're going to make all 3 cards using the same colors. Not quite the same designer series paper. I mean, it was all from the same pack, and we'll be using those 4 stamps to create 3 cards. So I think you'll enjoy that. At least I hope you're going to. So if you have not checked out Friday's Fun Fold Friday video, I want to make sure you do, because this week I am doing another giveaway, and I'm giving away the dies that make where it made the Christmas wishes on this card. So this was a fan fold card using the same designer series paper I'm using tonight, using the greeting from the set I'm using tonight, but then I used the words for the season dies to cut out the wishes, Christmas wishes. So all you have to do between now and Thursday night at midnight is leave me a comment on either Fun Fold Friday or Simply Stamping Sunday, either here on Facebook or on my YouTube channel. And I will be taking everyone who comments and putting it into one of those spinner things online to determine the winner, and I'll announce it Friday night at Fun Fold Friday. So if you want to be in on that giveaway, make sure you're doing some commenting. And the one thing, the disclaimer I need to say is that due to Stampin' Up! Rules and regulations with people who are in the United States. And so if you live in the United States, you're up for the drawing. And if you live out of the country, then I will send you a tutorial with several cards for this Christmas set. Okay, let's get started so that we have a lot to do tonight. All right, so my first card. So tonight I'm going to try to use some different designer series paper than I used last week. So let me get this all out. And this is our first card with the Merry Christmas with the tree on the front. And then we have Wishing You Peace and Joy on the inside with the tree also on the inside. So this is a black and white kind of Christmas suite. So I love this patterned designer series paper that I used in this one. I actually like all of it. And this is what it looks like. And on the back we have, remember, one side has the gold foil, the other side has just black and white designs. So you have these beautiful ornaments, and these ornaments could be cut out to put on a card. We could use this as a background. We'll be using this on a different night because we haven't used this side of the designer series paper yet. So, Bonnie, thanks for joining us tonight. So, what do we need for supplies for this card? I have a piece of thick basic white cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5. Then I've got my little cheat sheet right beside me. I have a piece of basic white cardstock that measures 2 5/8 by 3 7/8. I have a piece of basic black cardstock that measures 2 3/4 by 4. And I have another piece of basic black cardstock that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then finally I have my Modern Christmas Specialty Designer Series paper that measures 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, let's put this together because as I said, we're going to put 3 very quick cards together. So I'm going to start with grabbing a bone folder, and I am just going to really give burnish a nice crease here. Okay, there's the front of our card. And I am going to take this, I'm going to add some Stamp and Seal on the back of it to put this on the front. Hi Joyce, thanks for joining tonight. And this is just an 1/8 of an inch difference, so I'm going to put that on the black. It's just going to give a nice little, just a touch of that background to just make it stand out from the white cardstock. So, whoops, let me just get this on so it's even. There we go. Okay, we're going to do some stamping on the inside of this, and we're going to do some stamping on this piece of basic white cardstock. So I'm going to take my Christmas tree first, because I'm going to be stamping in 2 places for that. This one is not going to fit the entire Christmas tree, so I'm going to stamp it, and you can see that part of it is off of the cardstock. And just so I don't get black ink everywhere, I'm going to just take a baby wipe and wipe that up. All right, and then I am going to make sure I'm stamping on the right side. Ink up. My tree again, and I'm going to stamp this on the right side. I could stamp it on the left side, that wouldn't matter. And I'm going to stamp my Wishing You Peace and Joy on the inside of the card. And then the other thing I need the black ink for is the Merry Christmas. I just absolutely love the font of this stamp. I just think it is beautiful. Cover on that, and then I'm going to use some Daffodil Delight with the star. So we're going to stamp that right at the top of the tree on the front of the card and on the top of the tree on the inside of the card. And now we just have to finish putting it all together, which won't take long at all. All right, so I'm just going to use my Stamp and Seal to attach this to my piece of basic black, and again, it's just an 1/8 of an inch difference, so I'm just going to have a small border. I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back of this. And we'll just peel those off. I have no idea where my little silver garbage can for my dimensional backings is located. I started yesterday. I'm going through everything in my stamp room, and I am just organizing and getting rid of things that I don't need anymore. And oh my goodness, I don't know about when you do this in your craft room, but my room is like so much messier than it was when I started. So this is going to be a project, a couple weeks worth of a project. Okay, so there's our first card, all said and done. So cute, so simple. Okay, let's set those two aside and go to our next card. And I'll show you what we need. So this is our card. I'm going to be stamping on the inside. I forgot to do that on my sample. I forgot to stamp inside two of them. So if whichever one I use on the front of the card, I'm using the other one on the inside of the card. So there we go. So this is what this card looks like for supplies first. For our grading, you're going to need a 3/8 of an inch wide scrap of paper. We're going to be stamping that, so I'll set that aside. You're also going to need, let's start from the beginning though. You're going to need a piece, well, I'll just bring my piece of paper right over here. It keeps falling down. You're going to need a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of thick basic white cardstock. And then I'm going to be using a tiny piece of basic white cardstock, which is, no, I have it, oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. It's 1 3/8 by 3 1/8, and we'll be stamping that as well. I have 2 pieces of basic black cardstock. One is 3 3/4 inches by 5, and the other is 1 5/8 by 3 3/8. I have a piece of designer series paper that measures, it's on the other side, 1 1/2 by 3 1/2. And I have a piece of the Silent Snowfall paper, which just has these snowflakes embossed subtly all over it. It's just so pretty. And this piece measures 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. So to start, let's just put some of this together. So I'm going to use my bone folder again to get a really nice crisp edge. There we go. I'm going to take my piece of designer series paper and I'm going to put this right in the middle, across like that, using my Stampin' Seal. And you can see the inside, the other side of this paper is just a black and white design again. So this is going to go right here. There we go. And then I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back side of the Silent Snowfall. Lynn, hi Rods. Thanks both of you for joining me tonight. And this is a 1/4 inch, so I have a little bit more room. And then I'm just going to put this on the front of the card. There we go. Now on the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp the tree. And I'm going to stamp the tree on this. So let's do the tree stamping first in the Memento Black. So I'm going to stamp this in the lower right hand corner. There we go. And I'm going to stamp the Merry Christmas up towards the top. So I still have room to write a little message. There we go. Set that aside while we stamp our tree again. Just going to turn it sideways so I can make sure I have it as centered as I can. There we go. And then my final bit of stamping is going to be the sentiment. Okay, so that's it for the black. Now we're going to get out that Daffodil Delight so that we can stamp the stars on the star on the top of the tree. Okay. All right, let's get all of that out of the way. I am going to take my scissors. Hi, Lynn. Thanks for joining. And I'm just going to snip at an angle. And then what I like to do, just so that my angle is equal on both sides, I just bring this little scrap over. And then I use it as a guide to cut again. Oops, I cut a little close to that W. So I'll just cut a little closer there. All right, so this piece is going to just be attached with Stamp and Seal to the basic black paper. Again, I have a bigger border on this piece, and I am going to be putting dimensionals on this to just hold it up, give it a little bit of height. Excuse me. All right, so there's the front of the card, and now all we have to do is put some adhesive on the back of this. So I'm just going to cut some of the edge, because this is a little bit of a more narrow piece. And because this has dimensionals, I'm going to have to put another one on top of it. And then I'll put a little bit of adhesive in the middle. And then we'll go to this side. Always make sure you use your whole sheet of dimensionals. Don't, use that outside edge, because it is the same thing. It's just a little different, just different size, which is actually kind of nice. All right, so I'm going to pull this off and just want to make sure I'm centering it the best I can. It's almost all the way across and there we have our second card. I love it. I love all these. Every card that I'm making, they're going to end up being my Christmas cards. Okay, that's card number 2. Now let's go to card number 3. So this is the front of the card. This time we're going to stamp 3 Christmas trees and use the wishing you peace and joy on the front of the card. What I do want you to notice on this, I was thinking of mounting this on some gold foil, and then I thought, oh my goodness, if I cut it just right, I can put both ends that have gold foil on it and then I don't need to use the gold foil to layer it on. So I thought that was a way to save some of your gold foil paper and use this design to the maximum. So here's what we need. We need to have a piece of basic black cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5. And I'm just going to use my bone folder to burnish that. I have a piece of paper that measures 4 by 5.25, which is going to go on the inside. I have 3 pieces of paper, basic white, that measure 1 3/4 by 3 1/8. So it's exactly what I used on the last card. So that's that. And then I need a 3/8 wide scrap for my sentiment. The gold off. It's not even. It's a 1/4 inch piece. So it has a little white on the edge, but for most of it, it is gold to mount under the sentiment. So that's just a scrap off of that. Okay, so let's start our stamping. So I'm going to start with stamping my Christmas trees. And I'm going to stamp the inside of the card first, just to be able to get this piece out of the way. So I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp this right on the right side again. There we go. I'm going to stamp the inside since I'm using Wishing You Peace and Joy. I'm going to use the Merry Christmas for the inside. And I'm going to set this aside because I still need to stamp the star on the top of it. So that's there. I am going to, on this little piece, stamp the sentiment. And I don't think I told you the size of the designer series paper. The size of the designer series paper is 3 7/8 by 5.5. And I know that's kind of an odd measurement, and you might be thinking, why didn't I just go to 4 inches? But I was really measuring so the gold would show at the end. So the way my piece of paper was, it had to be that 3 7/8 where I would have lost some of the gold. Okay, so those things are all stamped. And now we're going to start stamping the trees. Now, I've thought about different ways I could do this. I could have this tree off of the left, this one centered, and this one off to the right, or I could have had them like all different spots on that little piece of paper. But I decided to go with them all being pretty centered. They're not as I could get. I just want to make sure I'm leaving room to stamp my star at the top. And I didn't mean to stamp that on all 3 at once. Okay, there's number 2. So last week I was really just letting the designer series paper be the star of the show, and I was only stamping sentiments. This week I'm only using one of the Christmas trees, but that will change next week when I will use more of those designs. So now let's just finish the stamping. So I made sure there was room for a star at the top of each tree. And now let's put this one together. Okay, so I'm going to start with this piece, and I'm just going to cut the end piece off. I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on the back of this. And then I'm going to take that strip right here and I'm going to mount the greeting right over this. And I just want it to be centered, so I didn't get it perfectly straight. Much better. And then I'm just going to trim this off a little bit. There we go. So that is all set. That's just going to go on Stamp and Seal. So this is going to go, oh, we forgot to stamp. Oh, I forgot to stamp the star on this one. So let's just add some Stamp and Seal to the back of this, and we'll put it right in the center of the inside. There we go. Just a really nice coordinating center. This piece of Designer Series, this is what the back side looks. So we've got the gold, black, and white stripes, and then we've got the black and white design on the back. It's just going to go right on the front. It measures, as I said, all the way to 5.5 inches. So I'm just going to center this piece on the front. It has, oh, I don't know, maybe it's more than 1/8 of an inch, but it's less than 1/4 of an inch of cardstock. There we go. So that gives it a beautiful finish to the front. These are all going to get some dimensionals on the back. So I don't want this to get all squished down on my card, so I put a dimensional in the middle just to be able to give it some support for that part of the piece of paper. I used to be so stingy with my dimensionals, and I've just realized, you know, use what the card needs. Okay, so I am going to be putting these, I'm going to be spreading these out. I want to see some of the paper at the top and the bottom, and I'm going to want to see some of the, place them on the front of the card first, so I get them lined up the way that I want them to be. And I'm just going to put my bone folder so it doesn't open up. And I am going to put the middle one in first, because once I have the middle one placed, then I can take the other two off and just put them on. There we go. All right, so now so Lynn, I'd be honored if you cased my cards for your Christmas card. That's what I hope you do. I hope you get ideas that you use. Okay, so there we have the three on the front. And now I'm just going to, I don't want this to be, I could just put it center like that, but I like it offset a little bit like that. I think it just gives it more interest. So I'm just going to add some adhesive to the middle part. And I'm going to have this, and how I want to do it, I want this to go over one of the black lines. So that's how I'm lining it up. And that is our final card of tonight. So let's review what we made tonight. So this was our first card that we made. This out of the way. This was the second card we made, and then this was the third card. So if we'll put those two like that, and then this like this. And that is week 2 of Simply Stamping Sunday. I hope you enjoyed this session. Don't forget to leave a comment on the video here and the video Friday night. Each comment you make doesn't count as a separate entry, but each place you comment. So if you comment on my Facebook page and comment on both videos there, and even if you go into YouTube afterwards and comment on my YouTube videos, you could have up to 4 entries into the drawing. So don't forget to do that so that you're entered. And I'm really sorry, Lynn, that you lost your friend. That is so tough. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you to anyone who's a veteran for serving. We have Veterans Day this Tuesday, and I am from a family of lots of veterans, so I really appreciate anyone who serves our country. And I hope you have a great week. I will be back Friday night for Fun Fold Friday. See you then. Good night, everybody.